Hello students, welcome back to our geography session. Let us continue with our third lesson, Tides, part 3. But before we proceed, let us recall what we had studied in the last lecture. In the last lecture, we studied the types of tides, that is the spring tide and the neap tide. The intertidal range, that is the difference between a high tide and a low tide. Next we studied was the effects of tides. We saw that tides help in the fishing activity. They clear the coast and they also help us to obtain salt and are also used to generate electricity. So the learning objectives for today are the timings of the tide, waves, structure of the waves and velocity of the waves. Let us start with the timings of the tides. The timing of the tides will change daily. Tides occur continuously. Now, why there is a difference in the timings of the tide? It is just because the position of the moon changes. After reaching the maximum water level during a high tide, the low tide sets in. In simple words, we can say that when there is a high tide, we all know that the water level has reached to its maximum, then there will be a low tide. Similarly, during a low tide, when water reaches to the lowest level, a high tide sets in. Now children, observe the following diagram carefully to understand why the timings of the high and the low tide change daily. There will be high tide at point P as it is opposite to the moon. Now F is opposite to the point P, so it will also experience a high tide because we have seen earlier that opposite places experience the high tide. It will take 24 hours for point P to come back to its original position. Children, you can see this in the diagram. So point P will be at point F after 12 hours. The same change will also occur with reference to the point F. Point F will not experience the same high tide because the moon also would have moved a little ahead. Hence, it will take 25 minutes more for the point F to come to the position opposite to the moon. After 12 hours 25 minutes, F will arrive opposite to the moon and it will experience a high tide. Later again, after 12 hours and 25 minutes, point P1 will experience high tide as it comes in front of the moon. There will be high tide at F1 too, as seen in the diagram. Now, let us perform a simple experiment. Try this. Take a wide open large dish. Keep the dish on a table or a flat surface. Fill water in the dish up to the rim. You can see in the picture, children. We have to generate waves in the dish. Now, there are two questions which children you have to attempt on your own. That means now you all are having plenty of free time. So, you can perform this experiment and find out the answers. The first question is it possible to generate waves without touching or showing the dish? Try doing so. Second, in what different ways can you generate waves in the dish? Now children, let us understand the concept of waves. Let us take an example of our daily life. If we blow air over hot milk or tea while drinking, ripples are generated on the milk or the tea. So children, you may have experienced this many times. So now what are ripples? Ripples are the small waves or movement on the top of the water. So for example, you can just see this. If the water is still or stable, that means if it does not move, it will not show any ripples. But if we blow or throw something in the water, ripples are formed or created. So, water moves due to the force of the wind. Now let us understand what are waves. The sea water gets pushed by the wind and ripples are generated on the water surface. Surface means the top of the water. These are called waves. The sea water moves up and down or slightly forward and backward due to the waves. The waves bring the energy contained in them to the coast. Large or small waves are formed continuously at the surface of the sea. Generation of waves is a natural and regularly occurring phenomena too. So children, these waves are not man-made. We are not making the waves. They are natural and they occur even regularly. Now let us proceed to the next part, structure of the waves. The sea water gets pushed up and down because of the wind. Children, I think you must have observed this many times. The raised up portion of a wave is called the crest and the deepest part is called the trough. If a strong wind is blowing in one direction, large waves are generated. The vertical distance between a crest and a trough is called amplitude of the wave. The distance between two successive means to follow one another, between crest or trough is called a wavelength. The wavelength, amplitude and its velocity depends on the velocity of the wind. Now let us see velocity of the waves. Velocity means speed of the waves. Children, if we stand at the coast, we feel the waves are coming towards the coast. If a floating object like a ball is thrown at a distance in the sea, we find the object moving up and down at the same place. It does not reach the coast. It means the water forming the wave also does not actually come to the coast. The water in the wave does not move. Then what is moving? It is the energy that is moving. So waves are generated due to the wind, but sometimes waves are also generated due to the earthquakes or the volcanic eruption that occur below the sea. These waves have a great height in the shallow water. They are very destructive. Destructive means they cause huge loss of property and life. So these waves are called the tsunamis. Now let us see where did they occur. In 2004, tsunami waves were generated because of the earthquake that took place near the Sumatra island of Indonesia. This happened in India also. The tsunami waves devastated the east coast of India as well as of Sri Lanka. Now these waves also cause erosion along the headlands and create beaches in the protected locations in the bays. Now erosion means where the sand or the soil gets washed away by water. Now let us remember some important points. If an earthquake occurs in the ocean, the coastal areas face a risk of tsunamis. Coastal areas means people who are staying near the seas. In such cases, it is better to go away from the coast or towards higher altitudes. This way, loss of life can be avoided. Children, you must have heard in the newspaper or even seen in the news that if we are having plenty of rainfall, then there is a high alert in some areas. That means those people are asked to move away and reside somewhere else. Now let us see the next part. Do you know? While moving along the sea coast or playing in the water, we must take adequate care. Adequate means proper care regarding the timings of the tides. Otherwise, it can lead to serious accidents. For that, we must know the timings of the tides. For this, you must know the phase of the moon on the given day. 3/4 of the phase of the moon is the time of the high tide. For example, suppose you are at the coast on the 4th phase of the moon. Then 3/4 of the phase is 3. It means the high tide will occur at 3 a.m. and 3 p.m. and approximately 6 hours from it, that is 9 a.m. and 9 p.m. will be the low tide. There may be slight differences according to the local conditions. We must collect the information from local people and learn from them about the structure of the coast, its slope, rocky areas, as well as the streams near the coast before entering the sea waters for enjoyment. So children, here we shall end our lecture, and for homework you have to read the lesson. The question answers will be given in the next lecture, and you have to also revise lesson number 1 and lesson number 2 for the unit test. Thank you.